don't see him. Is he here? Okay. We'll go on. As we move on in the golden age of Julian Anderson, and by the way, the last name is always spelled with an E at the end. You know, I've been hearing that for 20 years. That's boring, Julian. I mean, okay. Your family was prominent in Minnesota, but they didn't make the pea soup, right? Okay, forget about it. Now, the next person I wanted to introduce, and I don't know if he's here because he's a friend of Julian's and he has something to do with darts, is Steve Fisher here. Okay, come on up, Steve. Steve came here on the recommendation of Julian, so who knows what's going to happen next. When I talked to Steve on the phone, I said, well, you know, there are going to be some people that are going to probably make fun of Julian and so on. He said, oh, and Julian's such a wonderful person. You know, I figured, well, he doesn't know him very well. But nevertheless, here's Steve, and he will have a few things to say.
I flunked my speech course at Shoreline. So this is my second try. Anyway, I was a student at Shoreline 74, 75. And I want to take this opportunity to thank Julian, as I owe him all of my success in life and my ability in math, as I did not have a math class with Julian. For this, I'm grateful. I met Julian through hiking, where he and Lloyd were in charge of the hiking expeditions. They went completely out of their way to fit in with the students, as they were advanced in their age. They were in their early 30s, and they were quite old to all of us. So they were determined to look like liberals, and completely hid the fact that they were in charge of our safety and liable for any mishaps. And Julian, I want to thank you for your example. Times have changed since long hair and the music. I have some pictures you guys might want to look at. The obsession with breaking rules, the intense interpersonal communications, the sleeping bags, the gossip, the broken hearts. We used the school vans for our hiking trips. And so with great pride and a tribute to our learning experience, that in all of these trips to the mountains, we never once wrecked the school van. And this legacy we owe to Julian. Many of our trips were in the winter snow, snowshoeing and camping in the snow, and we were never once caught in an avalanche. This we owe to Julian. Yeah, just a second.
Visual aids for you, Julian.
Julian once forgot the toilet paper, so I thought... Now, having been on many trails and sometimes hiking off the trail just for the hell of it, no one ever got lost more than a few hours. This we also owe to Julian. I have a compass for Julian. Although Lloyd made all the decisions, it was Julian who would step in and wisely stop the bad ones. Julian is known for his occasional, once in a while, assertiveness. never really had a strong opinion until he had something to disagree with. And this we used to call wisdom. Many times I would show up after driving for 4 or 5 hours for a hiking trip in the snow and realize I didn't have my boots. These are my usual boots. Tennis shoes in the snow. It can be done. Okay, because of his wisdom and charm, Julian was known as Gandalf. Symbolic of his long hair, his weird-looking beard, his willingness to kiss the Reverend Sunseed. Julian gave me a book once called Mount Analog, and the book compares the challenges of life to the climbing of mountains. And the book talks of climbers who particularly enjoy the ascension of the mountain versus those who prefer the exhilaration of the descent. Julian shared with me that he was in the minority of climbers that like to climb down better than to climb up. So at this stage of Julian's life, he should be pretty happy. But I must share with you now something you might not know. The real reason Julian's leaving Shoreline is he's become involved in politics again. And after much arguing with me, I finally convinced him that Megathymia is wrong, and we need a stadium for the Mariners and the Seahawks. Paul Allen wanted me to give this to Julian. And that's from Ayasaki, or whatever his name is. Now, it's no coincidence that Julian would retire so soon after President Clinton visited Shoreline Community College. He's confided in me his desire to run for office in the year 2000. Julian wants to put his beanbag chair in the Oval Office. He wants to tear down the bridge to the 21st century and swim across. Just the other day, Julian asked me to have coffee with him, an obvious attempt to get money. With Anderson as president, we can expect the following improvements: a different operating system in every home, consistently different ways of looking at things. Consistent. And hockey will be declared the national pastime. So Shoreline loses a great administrator, a negotiator, a truly unusual person who plays a mean game of pool with an average ability to drink beer. But America is the real winner. We say goodbye to Julian Anderson. From Shoreline, hello, Mr. President. The next president of the United States, Julian Anderson. We also have from the Mariners a little Mariner piggy bank. Thank you.
Who was that? Okay. We've had the excitement of hearing the math story and the mountain climbing story, but we're not finished because there's one more mountain climber. One of our more distinguished professors, Professor of Canadian History, Lloyd Keith. Takes him a while.
Steve, I think that we can get a petition and get that speech grade changed. The one good thing about Julian Anderson's retirement is that I no longer have to stop in the middle of campus and to engage in conversation with someone who wants to know something about computers. And so not to disappoint them, I give them some story. We're constantly being confused, but perhaps that explains some of the breakdowns we've had with administrative computing in the past. I'm not sure. By the way, Steve, Julian was at least nearly caught in an avalanche one time. Our colleague over there, Donald Jones, will remember the time that Julian told us that, yes, this route is perfectly safe. There's no problem. Let's proceed in this direction. And so we did. And not long, 100 yards, 200 yards, we saw a hand coming up out of the snow. That's odd. What a place to dig a snow cave. Then a bit further we see somebody with their pack sticking up through the snow. And it, of course, happened that they were covered by an avalanche, and if it wasn't for his acumen, shall we say, about safe routes, they probably would still be there. But we did rescue them, did we not? I don't know where you got all of that information at the 74th Street pub house, but I remember Julian when he was released from prison. And because Shoreline in those days was run by a president with a liberal orientation, we had a second chance program. And Julian was the beneficiary of that. I was too. I was a 3-time loser myself. I'd just gotten out of prison, but hadn't met Julian at that time. I probably have known him as long, if not longer, than most people here. I even remember, not apocryphally, but remember when he was a teacher. I remember him teaching. He actually did that. In fact, he had a fantastic mind. He did? It was the president before you. He knew and taught students about ordinal scales. He could do that. Some things were worth more than other things were worth. In those days, he could do it. He could string numbers together. I mean, he could even count beyond 10 in those days, and he did it. I mean, can you imagine on these hiking trips with Steve Fisher and Don Jones, many of the rest of us, and he's counting. Or he tells us a joke, 37, and we're supposed to laugh at it, as though we remember which one of those that it was. But Don Jones would like to talk about serious things like educational objectives, and on my one side, and then on the other side. Can you imagine being snowed in with these two? And on my other side, this guy talking about base this, base that. Base 10. What's so great about base 10? So we got into that one time, and I agreed with him. It's not so hot. God didn't make the world in 10 days. And so we invented our own base number, 16 and a half. That was his doing. I invented the word. It's called hectorod. Figure it out. It is base 16 and a half. And to this day, we both still participate more or less in an event that celebrates the hectorod.
Much less.
But he used to be quite excellent at mathematical computations until he became ambitious in his mountain climbing endeavors. He was, by the way, very well known for taking shortcuts. I think Steve Fisher may have alluded to this. And this led to the one time, I hate to tell you this, I know I'm probably letting you know some things about him that you've never really known before. He's in prison. And we've slept together. It's true. We've slept together. Intimately. It all started with Julian's shortcut. We had a program, we've not gone very far in it yet, but we still haven't given it up, and that's to climb to the roof of all the states. And we were climbing to the roof of Montana. It was a handsome peak, but not exceptionally difficult. Some enterprising mountaineer had even painted some of the rocks yellow so we could find our way up. I was quite willing to follow the yellow painted rocks on the way up. But Julian said, no, let's take this shortcut over to the right. The next thing, that happens with this other guy too that I slept with. But this is the story about him. I'll get him on his retirement too. The next thing I do is I find myself without a rope, hanging by my fingernails and toenails on the side of a cliff, inching along, and he says, well, we can make it, it's not so bad. And 2 hours later, we did survive. We did make it, but the sun is getting low in the sky, and we still haven't got to the summit. So we got to get to the summit. When we get to the summit, I got to tell this, and then I'll leave. I got to tell how we slept together. And it was a beautiful summit. We finally made it. The sun was going down, and then it occurred to us we had to get back. But it was dusk, and the route back required some rappels, and it was so dark that we decided we better stay on the mountain. Didn't have packs, and we fixed ourselves a little area with a little rock wall, and but we didn't have sleeping bags, didn't have pads. We had each other, and it got cold. And all inhibitions left us. But anyway, I got to finish quickly, but his mind went after that. He could no longer count past 1, and he babbled. 0, 1, 0, 1. And I suspect that's when the administration put him into computers.
Well, there's more story to tell. And this is just the beginning. Thank you, distinguished, hopefully soon-to-be Maritime Professor. We haven't yet got into